Hello and welcome to our podcast. Today we will discuss Spanish language with our guest Sirun. She will be sharing some fun facts about Spanish and explaining why it's such an important language. Okay, let's begin with our questions.
Why did you choose to teach Spanish?
I didn't actually choose it because I was going to be a primary school teacher and I was going to teach Icelandic and English for small children. And then when I finished the high school, I went to the university with my friend, and she wanted to study Spanish because we had been in Spain and we knew a lot of Spanish. And we went to a language school there. And so she said, we can come one semester to the Spanish department. So we were going to stay one semester in the university, and then we would go to study something else. But she quit, but I liked it so much that I finished it, and then I got a scholarship from the Spanish government, and they sent me to Spain, and then I had to do the thesis. And when I came back, I wanted to go back to becoming a teacher for a primary school. And then my sister called me. She's older than me. She's always telling me what to do. And she called me and said, no, you should not do that. You should become a Spanish teacher. You should just finish the thesis and have the BA degree. And you can also add to that the teaching, get the right to become a teacher. And then you can teach in primary school or in high school. And I thought, okay, this is actually a good idea. But I was still thinking about the other one. So I did that. I went home and I went to the university to learn how to become a teacher. And then you have to do some practice. And they sent me to school called FBA in Breiðholt. And I was really young. And I didn't think I was, ready to teach. They were so big that students were like almost my age, and I thought, oh my God, nobody's going to listen to me. I'm like almost their age. But then immediately when I started teaching, I thought, oh, I love this, and I knew that this was what I was going to do. I loved Spanish, I love Spain, and this was perfect job for me. So here I am.
Okay, how did you start learning Spanish and what was your first experience?
I started in high school. I was in a high school where they had lots of languages to choose from. And I didn't realize that I had this ability to learn languages. So I changed the department I was in, and I went to the language department. And Spanish was sort of like new. I had to force my friend to come with me because it was very exotic at that time. And people thought Spanish was oh, would you come to study Arabic? Everyone's like, oh, Spanish, that's so different from us. Because everyone studied German at that time. So she came with me and we loved it so much. And I was studying German and Spanish and French and Italian in the same school. And I realized I loved the Latin language more than the Germanic language. So that's why.
Do you have any funny and usual stories about your students?
I have many. I'm not going to tell you all of them because maybe they're embarrassing. But yes, I remember some. Well, I can tell you one really funny story he's actually my friend today, this student of mine. And I was new teacher. And so I was teaching them how to use the adjectives and with the right gender, you say cansado for boys and cansada for girls. And then there was this boy, and he was gay, and I didn't know he was gay. So, and they were supposed to describe their future prince, so Prince Charming or princess, and in Spanish. So he was like my dream husband would be like this or that, and he did everything correctly. And I didn't stop him. He was talking, and I knew he was really brilliant student. And then, but he put everything in masculine. And I said, yes, everything is right, except you put everything in masculine, I said to him. And because I was foolish and really young. And then he said, yes, I know. And he just looked at me like this, and I was like, okay. And I started to write on the whiteboard, and I realized, oh, okay, my bad. But Everything was good. He was not embarrassed, and I loved that about him. And he still to this day is my friend.
Interesting.
I must have been like really red in the face, like, oh.
What difficulties did you encounter when learning the language?
I think, well, it's difficult to think this is way back because I was learning a lot of languages, and people always, my student asked me, Sigrun, what is more difficult, German or Spanish? Because this is usually what you get to choose from in high school in Iceland. So I said, I think the Spanish is more difficult because of the words. The words are really different from Icelandic, and the German's words, they are easier because they sound, many of them, like Icelandic. But the grammar is maybe, to begin with, at least, is more complicated in the German language, and then it becomes easier once you get it, you know. And it's the opposite in Spanish. First, it's like easy, and this is not so difficult, because we have 4 conjugations for the verbs in Icelandic. But as you go further along, you know, with subjunctive and all kinds of complicated grammar, it becomes difficult. But for me, it wasn't that difficult because I was lucky enough to be able to. I lived in like Spain when I was in high school. I went 1 month and lived with a Spanish family, and then I got to learn a lot of Spanish. And then when I went to the university and I had the scholarship, I went to Spain and I lived with 2 Spanish girls. And so it wasn't as difficult as it could have been if I wouldn't have been with all these Spanish people, you know. I was lucky.
How does the Spanish language differ in different countries?
How many languages?
How does the Spanish language differ in different countries?
Yeah, I would say for me the most difficult ones to understand in South America would be Cuba, because you have to really concentrate because they use a lot of slang and they don't speak really clearly. So that's a challenge. You have to like really focus on what they're saying. And in Spain, it would be southern Spain. You have to really like focus if you're not used to listen to people from southern Spain, because they speak really not so clear all the time.
Very fast.
Yes, and also they don't pronounce all the letters, so that's difficult, you know. But you know, once you get used to the people in South, you get used to every Spanish accent there is, you know.
What mistakes do students most often make when learning Spanish?
They have difficulties with the J, because you say Javier, Jesus, and they have this is difficult for them, because I speak with a Spanish accent from Spain, and it's like more like this than in South America. It's more like Javier. It's more like sort of lazy, like we say, lazy. And also when to say the Barcelona, when to say this pronunciation. They have to try to remember that. And also that you don't pronounce the H. You don't say hola, you say hola, even though you have to write it.
Yeah.
This is what they have.
Do Spanish people look at the foreigner's accent when they try to speak Spanish?
No, I don't think so, because Spanish people usually don't speak that good English. So this is what I tell my students. If you go to Spain, please speak Spanish. Don't try to speak English, because they don't speak English. And this is good. This was good for me, and I had to speak Spanish. And I also lived in Italy, and I had to speak Italian because nobody was speaking English to you anyway, which is really good.
What book, films, or TV series in Spanish would you recommend for learning the language?
Wow, there's so many to choose from. Oh, you should have. I would have liked to prepare for this. Oh, now I have to think. Book. I have 2 books that have really great impact in me, at least. And there's one called Pascual Duarte y su familia, which is from Camilo José Cela. He was a really famous writer, and it's like about this horrible family and this boy who grew up with his horrible parents with no culture, and they didn't mind if he couldn't read or write. And it was like, I read that when I was in high school, I think, when I read it, and wow. And also when I went to the university, I had to read the book. It's called 100 Years of Solitude. They've actually made a film about it in Netflix right now. I don't like the Netflix version as much as I like the book. Maybe I'm a different person now than when I was 20-something reading it in university. But that was something new for me because it's a sort of literature style with it's called Töfraraunsæi in Icelandic. So it's like it's sort of magical and fictional. So yeah, some things can happen that usually don't happen. Like it could be spiritual or something fantastic. So yeah, those are the two books that I think of. And the film, I think also I love the author Isabel Allende from Chile. She's really great, and I just finished reading a book from her. It's called Violeta, and many books to read. But the films, there's also one called The House of the Spirits that I recommend. Yeah.
What traditions or holidays in Spanish-speaking countries impress you the most?
Okay, I'm not very religious, so I thought when I was 20, I think I saw this Catholic ceremony, and I was like, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry or what's going on here. People like following a statue, like, and this is really strange for Icelandic people to see for the first time. And this admiration for, all the saints. We don't have any saints because we're not Catholics. And I thought that was really strange. And but what I like is all this. There's so many actually fiestas in Spain. So I like there's San Juan, for example, which is in June in Alicante because I go a lot to Alicante, and they have these statues that the art students, they make these beautiful statues. And then at the end of the festival, it's like 1 week, they burn them, which I think is a pity because they're so beautiful. But this is really nice because they have celebration the whole week. And this is very Spanish. I couldn't choose one because there's so many festivals in Spain. And I love Spanish people to begin with. And it's like always fun to be with Spanish people.
Is it true that Spanish people are all calm and chill and they...
Yeah, they are. Actually, I think because I have the comparison with Italy, and I think Italians are more like, they go up like this. But the Spanish are, we could learn from them. Even though you think they're not because they speak loud and they're like, they're like this. But they are really like, they're not shocked by anything. I think they're more tolerant. Yeah, because we in Iceland, we think we are tolerant towards all kinds of minority groups. And I think the Spanish are tolerant more than the Italians. And that's probably because the Italians, they have the Vatican and the Pope, telling them what to do.
Do you have a favorite Spanish word and why?
A favorite word in Italian? No, Spanish. So many words that come to my mind. I like no te preocupes. I like that, which means don't worry. No te preocupes. They say that a lot, the Spanish people. But I could say many others because I love Spanish so much. Such a beautiful language.
What dialect or accent in Spanish do you like the most?
Obviously, the one I learned, which is in the center of Spain. I like that because it's really clear the way they talk. And I'm really lucky they sent me there because I got the scholarship. I would probably have chosen Malaga because I didn't know anything else with Malaga when I got the scholarship. But the teacher, he chose it, and he made sort of pact between the University of Iceland and this city. So he sent me to Toledo, which is close to Madrid, and they speak which is considered like really fancy Spanish. But in the south, it's kind of cute the way they talk. They swallow the words, they swallow the letters, and I think it's cute. Andalusia.
If you're a beginner, is it difficult to understand Spanish dialect from the south?
Yes, it is actually. It's a challenge. It is because I had studied quite a lot Spanish before going to Spain for the first time. And then I landed with this family in Malaga, and they were like, and talk like this. And I was like, oh, oh my God, is this a language I've been studying for all these years and I don't understand them because they spoke so fast and really unclear. And then I went from there to the north and they were like, why did you go to Malaga to learn Spanish? They don't even know how to speak good Spanish. But I always say, if you understand the people in the south of Spain, you understand everyone.
Do all Spanish people talk extremely fast?
I think so, but also they think we talk fast. So I don't know. Maybe it's because they don't understand our language, and when Icelandic people don't understand Spanish, they think they're fighting or something like that. They speak loud. And so I wouldn't be the best person to say whether they speak fast or not, because I understand them.
Okay, here's our few last questions for today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it worth going to Spanish speaker country to learn the language faster?
Yes, definitely it's worth it. You should definitely go to Spain. I always say to my students, try to go to a language school, even though it's just for 2 weeks, but you will be like, you know, with Spanish on the street, Spanish in the radio, Spanish on TV. You will hear Spanish everywhere, and then, yeah, it will happen. I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
today.
you so much. Very interesting.